continue with the second half of our lesson number 3 on the miracle of America. And we're talking about the basic beliefs of the Founding Fathers. And the basic beliefs of the Founding Fathers covered a very wide spectrum, including political beliefs, economic beliefs, and ideological beliefs. And we're at that point now where we want to talk about their ideological beliefs. The founders put tremendous stress on this, and I think one of the most surprising things to me was to hear the Founding Fathers say that they all had the same religion. Well, how can that be? They didn't belong to the same church. Some of them didn't belong to any church. But they talk about all believing in the same basic religious truths. And it took me quite a while to put those all together so that I could see exactly what those are. There are 5 of them. And the great thing about it was they said these are everybody's beliefs practically. Now, let's see if we all agree with that. First of all, the acceptance of the existence of a creator as the supreme power in the universe, the supreme creator. Now, I want to talk about that just a little bit. You see, they said that these were self-evident truths. Now, when is a thing self-evident? When is a thing self-evident? Now, that wall, for example, is that self-evident to you, that it's there? Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to argue about that. What about your parents? I don't see any of them here, except some of the children who have their parents here, but I think it's a safe assumption, beyond reasonable dispute, that you all had parents, right? See, even test tube babies have parents. So if it's a self-evident truth that there is a creator, let me just talk a little bit about a person who may be calling himself an atheist. Now, John Locke said an atheist is irrational. He really hasn't talked to his brain lately. And if he will talk to his brain, he will come to a conclusion that atheism is irrational. All the Founding Fathers accepted that. Now, let me think that through with you. In John Locke's famous essay on human behavior, or human understanding, on human understanding, he talks about the way to talk to your brain. Now, if there was no designer, if there was no creator, if everything came about just by accident, is that a self-evident truth to your brain? Will your brain accept that? And so take, for example, just a clock or your watch on your wrist. That's made up of wheels, cogs, sprockets, and springs, all arranged together so that they'll tell time. All right, now you talk to your brain. Let's hear your brain answer this. Brain, do you believe that the forces of nature, in all the eons of time, with galaxies expanding, stars exploding, with volcanoes erupting, and the North Seas freezing, with accretion and erosion, all of those forces working together, brain, would they ever, ever, ever produce a clock? What do you say, brain? See, my brain won't accept that. And then I say, why? Because my brain says, this is obviously a product of intelligent design and high-precision engineering. Is that what your brain says? That's what my brain says. Okay, brain. And if that's true of a clock, what about my eye? Just one of 500 factors missing and I'm blind. What about my ear with that hammer and that anvil and that stirrup and all those beautiful, delicate sounds that come through my ears that are so fascinating, I just love so much? What about that? What about my digestive system? Oh, it's such a good thing my esophagus goes down to my stomach and not my lungs. Isn't that true? And if it's true of a clock, what about everything else? Now John Locke says, let me just add this part. He said, after you've thought that thing through and your brain has decided there has to be a creator, let me just add a couple of things. Nothing ever produced something. And you are something. And you're surrounded by a lot of somethings, right? And he said, let me tell you something else. A non-cogitative thing, like a rock, that's an unthinking thing like a rock, never produced a highly intelligent, cogitative being like you. So that you just know that there was a very intelligent, cogitative being antecedent to yourself. That's John Locke in Human Understanding. All right. Now that's why the Founding Fathers said it is a self-evident truth for anyone that will talk to his brain that there is a great creator to whom we are beholden and to whom we should pay our respects and our devotions and honor the laws that he has revealed. All right? All right, number two, that the Creator has revealed a moral code for happy living which clearly distinguishes the difference between right and wrong. See, we went through that. We went down through what Moses gave us and how it makes for good life, the good life, so that we're morally responsible, so that we recognize the necessity for service to God and man, and so that we don't steal and we don't covet other people's goods. We go out and earn our own. Isn't that common sense? I bet it makes for a happy society. All right? And number 3, that the Creator holds mankind responsible for his treatment of his neighbor, of one another. We are held responsible for the way we treat each other in the eyes of the Creator. We are held responsible, all right? Now, number 4, there is a future life. It doesn't all end here. It's like the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. The rich man exploited the widows and the orphans and everybody, thinking that he'd get away with it because it was secret. They weren't big enough or powerful enough to do anything about it. He died and he's still alive. Isn't that terrible? And so are all these other people. And so it was like fire and brimstone on his head. And poor little Lazarus was over there with Abraham receiving all the nice rewards. You remember that parable? All right, that demonstrates the point. When the atheist goes over there, he finds he isn't dead. He's still alive. All right? And the founder said there is a day of judgment in the next life where we are judged for what we did in this life. Now, you want to hear Benjamin Franklin say all these 4 things, or 5 things I should say? Listen to this. Here is my creed. I want to tell you this is a great man. I have a great respect for Benjamin Franklin. We're finding out that a lot of stories that have been told about him were deliberate deceptions. I'll go into that maybe some other time. But anyway, he's turning out to be a much greater man. Research is revealing that a lot of the stories told about him were absolutely false. So here is my creed, he said. I believe in one God, the Creator of the universe, that he governs it by his providence, that he ought to be worshipped, that the most acceptable service we render to him is in doing good to his other children, and that the soul of man is immortal and will be treated with justice in another life, respecting its conduct in this. These I take to be the fundamental points in all sound religion. Sound religion. All right, that's kind of interesting because they felt that there were some unsound religions, and atheism is one of them. Didn't think it was sound. Now, let me just talk to you a little bit about religion. Could atheism be a man's religion? What's your definition of religion? Well, the founder said, it's your basic beliefs concerning the relationship between you and the universe. You and the universe. And they felt that it was a self-evident truth that the things that they believed, these 5 things that they believed, was what you build a great civilization on. And that our relationship to the universe and to our Creator is as real as they had set it down. All right? Now, Samuel Adams said that these basic beliefs constitute, well, excuse me, let me go back up to D. We've got a couple of blanks there. Religion of America, he said, is a person's basic beliefs concerning his relationship with the universe. You got that. Now, notice that they distinguish between religion and church. Church is where you go to worship according to your beliefs, right? And that's an establishment of religion. That is not religion. When people say, let's divide church and state, the founder said, well, yes, but don't divide religion and state. The whole government will collapse. Our system is built on those 5 basic principles of universal religion. And you separate the government from that, and there'll be no government. It will decay and fall apart. All right, so church is your other blank. Sam Adams said these basic beliefs, which constitute the religion of America, is the religion of all mankind. You believe that? Now, those 5 things that I mentioned, you just stop and think a minute. Do Catholics believe it? Yes. Protestants? Yes. Jewish people? Yes. If they're Orthodox and traditional. How about Mohammedans? Yes. How about Hindus? Yes, those elements are basically there. How about the Shintos? Isn't that interesting? That's what they meant by those 5 basic beliefs. They're self-evident to practically the whole human race, except a few super intellectuals that have reasoned themselves into atheism. But anyway, that's Sam Adams talking. And John Adams said that these are the general principles on which the American civilization was founded. I just wanted you to know with a citation that what I'm presenting to you is really their story. And then Thomas Jefferson said, these are the basic beliefs in which God has united us all. All right, now the founders passed the Northwest Ordinance in 1787, which was exactly the same time that we were writing the Constitution. And do you know what this Northwest Ordinance says? It says that in our public schools we want 3 things taught. This became their official policy. Guess what it was? Religion, morality, and knowledge. Now, when they said religion, they didn't mean anybody's creed. They meant those 5 things on which we can all agree. Now, when I was a little boy up in Canada, I had a teacher that taught me those things in school. I was sitting next to my very good friend, Gray Kirkham, and across the aisle sat this was the 2nd grade, by the way, was my little sweetheart, Marie Red. She later grew up and married my best friend. But anyway, I saw Gray Kirkham reach over and take an apple out of her desk when she wasn't looking, and immediately Miss Monroe, who was of a different faith than the 3 of us, she said, "Gray Kirkham, I saw you take that apple." Oh boy, he put it back and his face was red as an apple. Now she said, "Class, pay attention. I just did Gray Kirkham a great favor, because I saw him take the apple and he was kind enough to immediately put it back. Now if he'd put it in the bib of his overalls and taken it out during recess and eaten it, it would have been a stolen apple. And when he went back to his heavenly Father, he would have been asked about the stolen apple. And he would have been very embarrassed, don't you think?" And we all agreed. That would have been very embarrassing. Now she said, "I saw him do it. He was kind enough to put it back, so everything's all right now." Now she said, "Class, I want you to remember, you are never alone. You have a heavenly Father who loves you, in whose image you were made. And he wants to watch all the good things you do, and they are recorded. And if you make some mistakes, they are recorded too." Will you remember that? Ooh, I want to tell you that made a tremendous impression on my 2nd grade brain. I mean my brain in the 2nd grade. Anyway, would you mind having those things taught to your children? I want my children taught that. Now, creed, that's something else, but the basic universal truths the founders said should be taught in all our schools. Now, that's not that's not uniting church and state, but it's reminding our people of the great universal religious principles upon which all our institutes are built. Now, to appreciate how seriously the founders considered these teachings, I want to quote Alexis de Tocqueville. When he got over here and looked at the civilization that existed at that time, he said, "Religion in America takes no direct part in the government of society, but it must be regarded as the first of their political institutions." In other words, if we've got strength in America, it's because of these great universal beliefs that we are sustaining and that we are practicing and believing. And if we are violating those in our daily lives, we are weakening the structure of our whole society, of our families, and of our neighbors, as well as ourselves. He said, "I do not know whether all Americans have a sincere faith in their religion, and for who can search the human heart. But I am certain that they hold it to be indispensable to the maintenance of Republican institutions." How do you like that? Because everybody he asked, they said, it's important that we all maintain these basic beliefs. "This opinion is not peculiar to a class of citizens or to a party, but it belongs to the whole nation and to every rank of society." Now, unfortunately, that isn't true today. And in fact, there's a very direct attack being made on those basic ideological truths that make for a happy family, happy human beings, and happy society, happy cultures. And I want to talk about that just for a moment. So capital A, the attack on the founders' basic beliefs actually began in their day. And that's your blank, day, their day. However, they succeeded in holding to their principles much better than we have in our day. The attack on the founders' political and economic ideas came primarily from the Tories in both England and America. The Tories, well, who are they? All right? The Tories were those who believed in going to the king for everything. You know, you got a problem? We go to the headquarters. We go to Moses. Let Moses solve everything. Go to the king. And guess what the word Tory means? It is believed to come from the word, the Irish word ta'ari. Ta'ari. And that means, come, O king. Please come. We got a problem. Ta'ari. Come, save us. Tory. Isn't that interesting? All right, now, the founders were Whigs. And we think that comes from the Scotch word Whigamore, which were the wagoners, the draymen. And they were very independent. They call them Whigs. Whigs. They're not taking it from anybody. All right? They wanted to solve their own problems. Their own problems. All right? Now, the next one. There was another group in England which were called the Levelers. The Levelers. And they were the people who were always saying, we need more rights, we need more property, we got to soak the rich. They're called Levelers. And I've already pointed out to you that Sam Adams said we did everything we could to make the ideas of the Tories and the Levelers unconstitutional. Where you're constantly going to the king for solving every problem, solve them ourselves. And don't be taking property away from somebody that's happened to accumulate a little. We're going to need that for investment in industry, etc. And that's really the way it turns out. All right? Those levelers, they always wanted everybody to be equal in things. The founder said that's never possible. And there's another way to approach that so that everybody gets wealthy, but that's not the way to do it. And capital D was unconstitutional. Did you get that? All right, now the foremost person attacking these great ideas was Karl Marx. That is the one that's had the greatest impact on it. And Karl Marx called natural law and free enterprise economy capitalism. Capitalism, that's his word. And the socialists claimed that their formula was superior to the founders' free market economy because, and I just wanted to itemize it so when you hear them you'll know. They said private rights and property should be replaced by government ownership or control of property. That's their idea. You want that? All right, now see, we've had years of experience with this, and it turns out not to be good at all. It's counterproductive. Now, they said that competition, Marx and his disciples say that competition should be replaced by social production. Social production. And that competition should be wiped out. We shouldn't have any competition. I like that. Now, supposing we'd had that $12.95 pen without any competition, where would the price have remained? Yeah, between $10 and $12. As a matter of fact, that's how much they cost in Europe, in Russia. You can get a ballpoint pen in Russia, and they're somewhere between $8 and $12. And a friend just returned from Moscow, where he was military attaché, and he said, I took over 2 pens. They each cost me about $1.50. Pretty pens. They were nice metal and everything. He sold them for $50 a piece in Moscow. That's because they don't have the competition, you see. And then profit. Oh, Marx said, that profit, oh, you got to get rid of profit. He said, that's stealing from people, profit. What did we say profit was? It's what makes things worthwhile to produce. And you wipe out profit, and immediately everything goes down. As a matter of fact, there have been times when the government has said, for the sake of the poor, we're going to put on price controls. Have you heard that? For the sake of the poor, we'll put on price controls. All right, that's capital D. And what do you get? Scarcity, black markets, and corruption. Automatically. That always happens. Takes the profit out of it. All right? Now, history has now caught up with socialism all over the world. Socialism is crumbling and collapsing. In spite of the fact that America sent billions of dollars over in foreign aid to Europe and Latin America and everywhere, trying to save these collectivist societies, they are counterproductive and they collapse. So it's a failure formula. Socialism in any form is a failure formula, and if you use the militant form of communism, Nazism, and fascism, it's disastrous. You remember that pile of bodies there in the back of a truck? That's what communism does. All right, failure formula. All right, now I want to just tell you about a little friend of mine. I'm going to call him Johnny the shoemaker, because Johnny is kind of typical of what's been happening in America. Now, here's a shoemaker in Massachusetts. You see him? And he's working hard all day, and he notices everybody complains about new shoes. It takes so long to break them in. You know, get blisters all over your feet, so he goes and gets some softer leather, puts cloth lining in them, and puts a little style to them. Don't have claw bobbers anymore. And lo and behold, it's a success. Next thing you know, everybody wants Johnny's shoes. And he gets so busy, he has to hire all the local unemployed shoemakers. He got them all working for him. And it's just going great. And everybody's happy with him, but he still can't produce enough shoes. Along comes a man, he says, I've been working for about 15 years on a machine, Johnny, and it's available now. If you'll if you come over and look at it, it'll help you make 10 times more shoes in one day. And so Johnny goes over to look at it, and he said, oh, that's marvelous. I think you're right. Man, I'd like to buy that machine. Well, the man says, that's the only one I have, but I'll make you one. Cost you about $50,000. $50,000? Johnny said, I can't afford that. Well, he said, that's what it'll cost me to produce it, and I've got to make a little on it to make it worthwhile. So Johnny mortgaged his home and got the machine. And he's plunking out shoes like 60. He could have fired everybody because he make enough shoes. But no, he said they need a job too. So he's making as many shoes as he can. Pretty soon one of those other shoemakers comes along just about the time Johnny had his machine paid for. And he said, hey, I'd sure like one of those machines. I think I could make some more shoes for you, and you'd make more money. Now, I could get a higher salary, couldn't I? Yes, if you were making as many shoes as I, boy, I could triple your salary. He said, could we do that? And I, oh man, I'd have to go mortgage my home again. Well, would you please? So he went and mortgaged his home again and got that machine. And they did it again and again and again. Pretty soon he's got a whole factory, and the next thing you know, Johnny has prospered. And so have a lot of other people. And you know what happened? A socialist came along and talked to him. A socialist came along. And he said, Johnny, you are a capitalist. No, he said, I'm a shoemaker. He said, you haven't made shoes for years. You got everybody else making shoes, and you're exploiting the profits from their efforts. And Johnny thought for a moment. He said, wait a minute, you are wrong. It was I who shared my profits with them. It was I who mortgaged my home so they could have one of those $50,000 machines. It was I that put them in a position where they would be able to have a higher standard of living. Yeah, he said, but you're wealthy. Yeah, he says, it was kind of nice. That's true. It's just wonderful. But he said, you know, I found out that you can only wear one pair of underwear. You can only bathe in one tub. You only wear one suit and ride in one carriage at a time. I said, what do you do with all that extra money? That's how I built the library, built the stadium out the school. And I'm going to build a new factory. I put a lot of money into research. People still don't have enough shoes, or at least they're not cheap enough. I can cut the shoe price in half with my new ideas. I'm building a new factory out there, and I'm going to need about 3,000 more people. The socialist looked at him for a minute and said, think there's an opening for me? You see, we can do all the criticizing we want of people who make a profit, but actually they're the job makers. And so that's what Johnny ultimately called himself. He said, I guess I'm not a shoemaker anymore. I'm Johnny the job maker. I'm Johnny the job maker, and that's your blank. All right. Now, those people who want to replace the Founding Fathers' formula with socialism either haven't studied the history of this economic history, or they're not paying attention to what is happening where socialism is being practiced. All right, now let's take a direct look now at the people that are attacking these basic religious beliefs. These go now by the name of humanism. Humanism. Now, interestingly enough, that's number one, humanism. And up above is self-evident truths, Founding Fathers' self-evident truths. Now, humanism started out as a great religious ideology, and we had leading clergymen like Erasmus of Holland and Sir Thomas More. They were great men. And they said that God intended that mankind, see, this is Erasmus, he said God intended that mankind should enjoy happiness in this life as well as the next. And Sir Thomas More was a great advocate of it. These men were known as religious Christian humanists. And they wanted to promote human happiness, promote science, better architecture. They wanted to have nicer homes for the people, better human relations, and the development of the arts, you see. Those were great men with a high ideology. The world can be made a happier place to live, and they were able to prove that the Bible advocated that we should take the earth and make it abundant, multiply and replenish it, and so forth. All right? So B is promote. And this caught on tremendously in America. And the Founding Fathers, see, they'd get together. Here's Franklin and Jefferson all talking together here on the screen. And they were great religious humanists. All right? Then a group came along that said, well, sure, we believe that human beings should do their thing. All right? Everybody do their thing. Okay? But the next thing they knew, they were violating the moral code. And they were criticized for that. the next thing, those people isolated themselves and went over into the area of Greek hedonism. Greek hedonism, where the idea is pleasure, anything that will please the body. I mean, give it drugs, give it liquor, give it indulgence in any kind, let its passions go unbridled, let the physical have its pleasures. And that's number 3 there, pleasure. Now this became known as secular humanism. Secular humanism. And it soon developed a philosophy which was totally repugnant to the beliefs of the founders. For example, you take Corliss Lamont, who wrote the philosophy of humanism. Read that sometime. It says, from our standpoint, there is no creator. Now see, this is repugnant to the beliefs of the founders. There is no creator. There are no inalienable rights. There is no fixed morality. No divine purpose. Man has no soul. Man has no responsibility to any supreme being, and there isn't any final judgment. All right, now these secular concepts, when they're practiced, are very dangerous, and that was thoroughly demonstrated by the French Revolution, where they turned humanists, and the terrible extremes were indulged upon. Now in America, it started out with World War I. That's when it began getting a real grip in America. And do you know that secular humanism has kind of spread all over the world now? It had infiltrated our educational institutions, many of our religious organizations, and it spread all over Europe, Latin America, and is now getting a foothold here in America. Well, there was a man by the name of Plato who in 400 BC tried to advocate his ideas, which he thought would be helpful, and the socialists and humanists have grabbed onto Plato. And I've listed here in your outline all of the things that he believed in. It's fantastic. Doing away with property and family and all these other things. Plato was quite a personality. Now, several of the American founders studied him and called Plato total nonsense. And I quoted John Adams and also Jefferson. At number 1, Jefferson said it's total nonsense, and John Adams agreed with him, and he'd studied him in 3 different languages. So the founders warned against this type of thing. That's your number 3 there, is warned. But a lot of Plato's ideas have caught on, and they represent at the present time the opposition to the basic beliefs of the founding fathers. And it's the foundation of socialism and of communism, Nazism and fascism. Many people are trying to get secular humanism into our schools. Well, I just want to close now by saying that having established all of these very important, sound, basic principles, the founders now had a job to do, and that was to put it all together. And that's one of the most thrilling stories in all human history, and that's what we'll study next time, the miracle of America. The miracle of America.